Good evening from London, and hello from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, Chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, and Chairman of the Korean Friendship Association of the UK, and of course, the owner of the SONGUN007 YouTube channel, militantly defending people's Korea with no ifs or buts, and probably, as I say, the only pro-DPRK, pro-Juche YouTube channel in the UK. And welcome to everybody who's just joining. This is our 31st live stream. Yes, we've got up to doing 31 different live streams, quite an achievement. And we'll be continuing next year. So I had lined up a number of topics. I would say, to people who are joining for the first time, the format will be that I will talk probably for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then I will pick up on questions that appear in the live chat. So, yeah, I had lined up a number of subjects to talk about, and I'm going to talk about them. But as usual with these live streams, different events intervene, and it's always good to say a bit about them. And recently, the so-called G7, which is a bloc of imperialist countries like the US, UK, France, Italy, Germany, Canada, Japan, and with the EU as a sort of observer, they held a meeting in Canada of their foreign ministers, and they came up with the statement, which included a few lines on the DPRK, which urged the DPRK to denuclearize. And of course, as I've said on many occasions, denuclearization of the DPRK is just a code word for regime change. It's a code word for overthrowing the socialist system. We mustn't be naive. And respected Marshal Kim Jong-un himself actually said back in September to the Supreme People's Assembly that the DPRK would never lay down its nukes. It would never hold talks about denuclearization. And moreover, the DPRK's nuclear status, its status as a nuclear power, is firmly enshrined in the Constitution. So calling for the denuclearization of the DPRK is actually denying the constitution of the DPRK and denying its sovereignty. And it was, I think, a very disgusting but also arrogant and outrageous act of the G7 for them to call for the denuclearization of the DPRK. And it's like a broken record, really. They keep repeating about the denuclearization of the DPRK, even though it's been a nuclear power for 19 years. Yes, on the 9th of October 2006, the DPRK tested its first ever nuclear device. So, I mean, the imperialists really just need to get over it. And I will say this, at the moment, we're seeing threats, very real threats, against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, led by Nicolas Maduro. In fact, not just threats, the US have killed about 80 people there in various incidents where fishing boats have been attacked by the US Navy, and there's a giant US aircraft carrier, I think the USS Gerald Ford, in Venezuelan waters. But just think, if Venezuela had nukes like the DPRK, would this be happening? No, somehow I do not think so. And, we're going to have to see what happens with Venezuela, but of course, at the same time, extend full solidarity to Venezuela in its struggle against US imperialism. So, to come on to the actual subjects I planned to talk about when I was starting to plan this live stream last week. Firstly, there is the question of sanctions against the DPRK. Obviously, not a new subject, but it was notable that on Tuesday, 4th of November, the US Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control imposed sanctions on 2 DPRK companies and 8 DPRK citizens. And a statement of the Vice Minister for US Affairs of the DPRK Foreign Ministry pointed out that it is actually the 5th time since the present US administration, the Trump administration, came to power at the beginning of the year, in January, at the beginning of the year, that the US has imposed sanctions. So that's 5 times in the space of less than a year. And in my opinion, I think we're not going to see the Trump that existed in his first term of office. You had the image of Trump, the peacemaker, and the wheeler dealer, the deal maker, and you had fans of Trump, MAGA people pointing out that during the first Trump administration, the US didn't get involved in any wars. Not strictly speaking true, because there was a missile attack on Syria, but I suspect that was partly done to impress Britain and France. But this time around, I think Trump is going to be increasingly defaulting towards an open neocon position, and this mask of deals and peace will slip. In my opinion, it may well have been completely false in the first place, the first time around. There is a view that, in fact, Trump's talks with the DPRK were about trying to coax the DPRK into one-sided disarmament and achieving the aim of regime change through stealth, through trying to persuade the DPRK to open up. Anyway, I think what the latest sanctions show is that the US have no will whatsoever to end the hostile policy against the DPRK, and that any talk of dialogue is basically false. You know, it's basically hot air. And as Comrade Kim Chol, the Vice Minister for US Affairs of the DPRK Foreign Ministry, said, the US has fully betrayed again its wicked nature to be hostile towards the DPRK till the end. And end of quotation. I think that's a very significant statement. And of course, it was around this time, in fact, I think 2 days before this statement got issued, and just before the US slapped these extra sanctions on the DPRK, that the South Korean puppets, the ROK puppets, were floating talks, floating rumours of talks between the DPRK and the US. The South Korean National Intelligence Service, hardly a reliable source of information, reported to the Puppet National Assembly that a DPRK US summits like those that were held in 2018, 2019 would take place next year, probably after March. And the South Korean puppets did not offer much in the way of concrete evidence for this. You know, it appears to be an assertion. Of course, respected Comrade Kim Jong-un himself actually had said in his speech to the Supreme People's Assembly of the DPRK in September that he did not rule out talks with the US, with Trump, but these could not be about denuclearization, and that the US would have to accept the DPRK's right to exist. You know, I think this got seized upon by the media, and they didn't see the statement within its full context, and also missed out the crucial bit about the US having the will to coexist with the DPRK, which is very important and fundamental. But the South Korean puppets seem to believe that there will be talks between the DPRK and the US, even though these did not actually take place during the summit of the Asia Pacific Economic Community, EPEC. It did not take place during this event that was held in South Korea. And previously, the South Korean puppets had been saying that this would happen. As I say, this event was held at the end of October until till the 1st of November, and the South Korean puppets were floating rumours about a summit between the DPRK Supreme Leader and the American president in South Korea. Now, the DPRK regards South Korea as the #1 hostile state. So why on earth would respected Marshal Kim Jong-un even go to South Korea in the first place, and then the South Korean puppets apparently suspended tours of the DMZ because they thought that a meeting would take place there, but it didn't. And as I said in an earlier live stream, bravo to Comrade Kim Jong-un for not meeting Trump. He did the right thing. But as I say, despite this, the South Korean puppets and their mouthpieces are trying to revive this idea that there will be a DPRK US summit at some time next year. But I think as the statement of the DPRK Vice Foreign Minister about the US sanctions shows, that this is probably very unlikely indeed. And it's all based on speculation and wishful thinking by the South Korean puppets. And I would also just point out that the infamous CIA disinformation outlet in the early days of Trump's second presidency were also claiming there'd be a DPRK US summit by the end of this year. Well, we've got about 6 weeks left in the year, and it hasn't happened. And they even tried to say that it would be in Wonsan at the new tourist resort there, and I say this has proved wrong. So although they always say in politics you should never say never, but I think the prospects for talks between the DPRK and the US are extremely unlikely. And I also made that judgment back in July when respected Comrade Kim Jong-un actually visited the Sinchon Class Education Center, which used to be called the Sinchon Museum, which is a special place in the DPRK that was built where the US carried out some of the worst atrocities during their temporary occupation of the DPRK in October 1950. A total of 35,383 people were actually killed by the US imperialists during that period, and a museum was established on the spot, which is now called a Class Education Center, not just as a memorial to the those who lost their lives at the hands of the US imperialists and class enemies, but as an education center to encourage anti-US and anti-imperialist consciousness. And my feeling was that when respected Comrade Kim Jong-un visited that place, that in fact the feeling in the DPRK was that it was quite unlikely that talks between the US and DPRK would take place. I can also say that when I visited the DPRK very recently in October for the celebrations of the 80th anniversary of the foundation of the Workers' Party of Korea, we were taken up to the Korean Revolution Museum, which is the big museum behind the statues on the Munsu Hill. And we were taken to a section of the museum which deals with which explains the recent period in the DPRK, the last 10 years, and it was devoted to both to the building of the independent economy and improvement of living standards, but also to the work of building defense. And there were several pictures of missiles, and there was also the picture of Comrade Kim Jong-un when he was reading out the famous statement of the State Affairs Commission of the DPRK in the autumn of 2017, when Trump had just spoken at the UN General Assembly and had attacked the DPRK. And the statement talked of retaliating against the US, and in fact talked of taming the dotard with fire. And I thought, well, that it's significant that that is there and that we've been shown it. I think again it reinforced my impression that I think talks between the DPRK and US are unlikely to happen. Not impossible, but I think very unlikely to happen because US imperialism is not dropping its hostile policy towards the DPRK. It would like to destroy the DPRK, but of course it can't because of the nuclear deterrent. But it keeps insisting on denuclearization. And it was very significant that the new puppet ruler in South Korea, Lee, who's a trendy liberal puppet instead of the old style fascist or conservative puppets. He's supposedly, in inverted commas, a liberal, but not actually very liberal. But he met Trump for the second time on the sidelines of the EPEC summit in South Korea. And although it was kept secret at the time, it wasn't published. In fact, they agreed a joint declaration, which of course includes the phrase about the denuclearization of the DPRK. And significantly, South Korea is going to increase military expenditure. So much for the liberal pacifist mask of the new liberal puppet regime. And the US is going to supply them with nuclear submarines. It's clearly targeting the DPRK. So the DPRK is totally correct to keep its nuclear deterrent and resist attempts for denuclearization. And I strongly applaud the stance of the DPRK. And I think it devolves upon us to do more to explain the stance of the DPRK. All too often it is forgotten that the US launched an aggressive war against People's Korea in June 1950 and killed at least over 1 million people just in the northern half of Korea, and probably a total of 3 million throughout the whole of Korea. It's forgotten that the US keeps troops in South Korea and also in Japan, in Guam, in the Philippines, all targeting the DPRK. It's forgotten that the US have nuclear weapons and nuclear strategic assets in and around the Korean Peninsula. And of course, people who say, oh, yeah, the DPRK should give up its nukes. They've only got to look at what happened in Iraq and Libya and Yugoslavia, and what might happen in Venezuela tomorrow, to know what happens when you don't have nuclear weapons. Anyway, to change the subject, to move on, I can report that I attended at the beginning of November a seminar on the theme of independence, peace and development that was held in Helsinki, Finland, by the European Regional Society for the Study, the Juche Idea. And of course, that organization was marking its 40th anniversary. So I think it is very important that we do more to encourage the study of the Juche Idea in Britain and Europe. The Juche Idea can make a very important and outstanding contribution to achieving the independence of European nations and achieving the social development of Europe. I think if each European country applies the Juche Idea, then they can achieve very great results. And lastly, yesterday was the 25th anniversary of the foundation of the Korean Friendship Association, which I think was a very significant date. And next week we're going to hold the KFA International meeting in Granada in Spain. And I think the Korean Friendship Association, of which the KFA UK is proud to be the UK branch of, the Korean Friendship Association truly defends people's career with no ifs or buts, and is the sword and shield of people's career in the imperialist world. And for that reason, it is hated by those who hate the DPRK and want to bring the DPRK down. So I'm sure that the Korean Friendship Association will go on for another 25, 50, 100 years, playing the essential role of defending people's career. So I will conclude talking now. Got quite a few comments in the chat, and I will start picking them up now. And please put some more questions. Most people just saying hello. Yes, hello to all comrades. G7 may denuclearize first to show an example. Well, indeed they should, because several of the countries in the G7 are nuclear powers. The US, UK, and France, they're all nuclear powers, and it is the US that has the highest number of nuclear weapons in the world. And of course, it is the US that have used nuclear weapons twice against a non-nuclear state. But the US and G7 only see the DPRK's nuclear weapons as an issue and only call for the denuclearization of the DPRK. They don't say anything about the US nuclear weapons in South Korea, and they don't say anything about Israel having nuclear weapons either. That is a fact. They only pick on the DPRK. I don't think that the G7 would denuclearize first to set an example. They're very much of the school of do as I say, but do not do as I do. Right, okay, starting to get your questions. Social construction of Juche KP. Do you have any book recommendations about learning more about Juche? Okay. Yes, there are many books about that I can recommend. It's actually difficult to know where to start. I think I'll try and drop a few in the chat. There is a very good small booklet called Juche Idea Answers to 100 Questions, published by the DPRK. I think that is probably the best place to start. I'm going to put a link in the chat to it so you can see the work on the Juche Idea by Chairman Kim Jong-il that was written on the 31st of March 1982. That is a very good work. We've also published a lot of materials ourselves. We had a study course on the Juche Idea, which is, we've got a video version of it online and we've got a printed version. Anyway, let's start trying to put a few links into the chat so you can click on them and download. And I hope that link works okay. I'm glad the links work. Just just put, it should be the book somewhere. Just one more minute. Just right, one more minute, and I'll just put one more link. As say for people who don't want to read the books or don't have the $2 for the for the study course. You can also, if I can find it, you can also look at you can also look at it online. It's somewhere we've got it in its entirety. Aha, there we are. Is it? Okay. Right, in picking up, yes, I attended the parade for the 80th anniversary of the foundation of the Workers' Party of Korea, and it was actually totally incredible. For one thing, it was my first time, though I've been at DPRK military parades before, it was actually my first time to actually attend a parade at night. You know, previously I'd only attended them during the daytime, so this was very different, and it was really amazing to see Kim Il Sung Square lit up with bright lights, with lasers and fireworks, and you could see the Juche Tower in the distance on the opposite side of the river, and that was like bathed in bright, dazzling light, and it was really shining out. And the parade itself was absolutely incredible. It lasted about 2 hours, and the discipline and dedication of the troops of the Korean People's Army is absolutely uh, incredible. They were marching not in good conditions, but in actual rain and wind. And I don't think any other military in the world could actually do something like that. Uh, and we were actually, it seemed to me that we were actually closer to the parade than before. We were allowed to take in our mobile phones, which they didn't allow before. So, you've probably seen a few clips put up on the YouTube channel, also on Telegram uh, and elsewhere. And it was, just stupendous to be there. Can't believe that I was there. And what all sorts of things impressed me. We saw the KPA fighters who'd taken part in the battle to liberate Kursk from the Ukrainian neo-Nazi invasion. We saw them march past. We saw all kinds of KPA divisions, yeah, and regiments marching past. And what caught my eye was the sort of finale where they brought the heavy armor and the missiles, and the tanks were quite. It was quite good seeing the tanks, and then towards the end, you had the new Hwasong 20 missile, which was ginormous. It was just huge. Couldn't believe the size of it, and it sort of it was so big. It took some time to actually pass through the square, and as I put in my different accounts of it, it's an Italian friend turned to me and he said, "Oh, that is for Washington." So we actually saw the DPRK's nuclear deterrent force, which is safeguarding peace in the world and the independence of the DPRK. And at the end, we found ourselves very close to the supreme leader, respected Comrade Kim Jong-un. We were very near when he came and waved at the spectators. I can't believe it now. Actually, saw him fairly close as he waved to everybody. It was an unbelievable experience that I will never forget. Okay. Okay, so please fire. Yes. Yeah, I mean, the lights during the military parade were absolutely incredible, and it was also repeated again when we saw the youth torchlights parade and the public procession on October the 11th, also in Kim Il Sung Square. It was quite surprising. Just to answer the next question that's popped up in the chat. No, it's not my first time to have seen respected Comrade Kim Jong-un in person. I have also seen him from a distance on a number of occasions. Most notably, I think the first time to see him was back in 2012 when I attended the World Juche Idea Congress for the centenary of the birth of President Kim Il Sung. And we first saw him from a distance at the unveiling of the new statues on the Mansu Hill. And then we were actually at the military parade on April 15th. And it was there that he spoke for the first ever time in public. And I can remember listening to the speech, and we had an expert translator an assistant professor of British Studies from Kim Il-sung University, and he was translating the speech for us very quickly and very accurately. And I remember the part about living standards. I remembered that very vividly. And then at the end of the parade, respected Comrade Kim Jong-un actually waved at us, at the crowd, but we could see him very clearly. And then at the firework display, we also saw him, and not just respected Comrade Kim Jong-un, but also Comrade Kim Yo-jong, who is now a vice department director of the Workers' Party Korea. We saw her. She looked like a very humble and modest person, dressed in a parka. We didn't know who she was, but later, as the years unfolded, we knew who she was. And then 2013, yes, I again saw respected Marshal Kim Jong-un from a distance, like when the Fatherland Liberation War Martyr Cemetery was opened, and also the opening of the reconstructed victorious Fatherland Liberation War Museum. We also saw respected Comrade Kim Jong-un at the military parades in 2017 and 2018. Yes, I agree. It was, it's a really amazing experience, and sometimes I cannot believe that I was there. Okay, see if there's any more questions coming up. I hope there'll be a few more. We will keep going for at least another 12 minutes, possibly longer, if we suddenly get a big flood of questions. Right, well, whilst I wait, I've seen your interview with Richie Brown. The interviewer looks like young Stalin, almost as if the photo became alive. Well, I will tell him that. I'm sure he will be very pleased to hear that. Indeed. Yes, yeah. I mean, yes. I can see the likeness there. Anyway, whilst I just wait for a few more questions to roll in, I'm sure there'd be a few more roll in. I've published this account of my last visit to the DPRK in October. That's now available on lulu.com. And so, of course, earlier this year, I published Anti-Revisionist Fortress of Juche, which has been translated into German, Brazilian Portuguese, and Polish, and of which 20 copies were sold at the Nuremberg Leftist Book Fair in Germany. I would hasten to add that was those copies were the German edition, which I'm also going to make available on lulu.com soon. Anyway, whilst I've been talking about that, a couple of questions have come up, which I think are quite important and relevant questions. Do you think there are any reasonable concessions that could be made to alleviate sanctions, since denuclearization is just plain unreasonable? Well, I think the DPRK have, from what I've seen and how I interpret the different speeches of respected Comrade Kim Jong-un and different statements, I think they've written off the idea of getting the sanctions lifted. I mean, obviously, it would be good if the sanctions could be lifted or scaled down, scaled back. The DPRK's development would be fast. And of course, we've always got to remember that really sanctions are an act of war. They're basically a declaration of hostility, and it's an attempt to deny the existence of the DPRK. But from what I gather, the DPRK now doesn't place any hope on getting the sanctions lifted. I mean, as I said earlier, in terms of negotiations between the DPRK and the US need to roll back their hostile anti-DPRK policy and make it clear that they recognise the DPRK's right to exist. Now, I think the US anti-DPRK hostile policy exists on many levels and is manifested in all kinds of different ways, one of which is the sanctions. Another one is military pressure and threat, and also psychological warfare and propaganda against the DPRK. These are, I think, three aspects of the US hostile policy towards the DPRK. So, I mean, the US would, for negotiations to take place, would have to end its nuclear threat to the DPRK. Do you think South Korea will try to get nuclear weapons? If so, how will the DPRK respond? Well, I said this was a good question, because I think it is quite possible that South Korea would try to get nuclear weapons. And in fact, as a first step, they're going to have a nuclear submarine. And this is not new. Under the Park Chung-hee fascist dictatorship in the 1960s and 1970s, the idea of South Korea having nukes was first floated, and several times they have toyed with the idea of having nuclear weapons. I think they've got plutonium from the power stations in South Korea. I mean, the only reason South Korea does not have nuclear weapons of its own, or as opposed to US nuclear weapons stationed there, is because the Americans won't let them have them. But who knows, that could change, particularly with Trump, who is very much an unstable and maverick leader, who you never know, where he's going to jump to next. So I think, yeah, I mean, it is a possibility of South Korea having nuclear weapons. The DPRK would strongly respond. They would increase their nuclear deterrent. That's how they would respond. Those dogmatics from Sturm you were talking about criticize everyone. China, Nepal, Belarus, Cuba, probably even penguins in Antarctica. I haven't checked everything they wrote. Well, I think that is very true. I mean, I don't want to sort of spend half an hour talking about Sturm or Sturm. I did make a video about it. They're a group that I have started to wonder about, but on the surface, they appear to be a very dogmatic and ultra-left and sectarian group. My understanding is that the only real model of socialism they see is the USSR under Joseph Stalin, and that is like the holy grail to them, and everything else isn't worth anything to them, and they use that as a yardstick to evaluate the DPRK and existing socialist projects. That's how they come across on the surface. Now I've noticed that though now quite ultra left, their narrative often mirrors that of the imperialists, and just puts a sort of ultra left gloss on it. As I said, they are very much the ultra left version of something like NK News. Some people have said that they are a state op, that they are, if I say right, controlling pro the US FBI program to infiltrate and destroy revolutionary organizations in the 60s and 70s. Some people have said that. Interestingly, a German friend said in German, Sturm is really associated with the far right and Nazis. You had the Sturmabteilung, the SA, the stormtroops of the Nazis, of course, who came to a bad end when their leader Ernst Röhm fell out with Hitler. But yeah, I mean, they are a crazy group. But I felt it was necessary to speak out against them because their stuff does get circulated a lot on social media. So I feel it should be refuted. Just look at me. Well, that's an interesting fact. I mean, these live streams are very useful to discuss things with people. I did not know that. Klitschstrom did not translate that article about the DPRK into Russian. It is only in their English-speaking channel. Now, thank you for pointing that out. It's a very interesting fact indeed. So this is only in English. So it's only aimed at an English-speaking audience, which would be the US, Britain. I think also a lot of European countries where, you know, most people can speak and understand the sort of functional level of it, English. So it's basically aimed at the Western countries. So it's aimed at spreading this sort of ultra left propaganda against the DPRK within leftist and anti-imperialist circles in the Western countries. That is very interesting and tends to slightly swing the balance towards the thinking that indeed this outfit is perhaps not what it seems, that there might be something more sinister behind it. Okay. Okay, just have a sip of water while I just wait to see if there's any more questions coming up. Maybe I should have a cup of tea to drink, a big mug of tea to drink, maybe, perhaps. No, there don't seem to be any other questions coming. A little bit quiet tonight, but just give people a chance to slap down a few more questions. I'll just speak about some future events. We've got another reading session of the little booklets, Understanding Korea, Volume 9, Human Rights, coming up. That is advertised on our social media, and we're nearly at the end of the book. So we're probably going to start studying another booklet like Understanding the Workers' Party of Korea, or the book in the series Understanding Korea on politics, or maybe on another subject. We've also got film nights coming up. We've yet to choose a film, but I'm sure we find a very good film to show. And of course, some comrades will be heading to Spain for the KFA International Meeting in Granada, which will also mark the 25th anniversary of the foundation of the Korean Friendship Association. And on 6th of December, you know, it's a bit being pushed a bit late into the year. We'll be picketing the British Brainwashing Corporation, which has been caught out by US imperialism, or by Donald Trump. I have to admit, you know, I find myself agreeing with Trump on just one thing, that the BPC is very dishonest. But we'll be picketing it because of the lies and disinformation they spread about people's career, which is a vital task for us. So if you're in the London area, please support the picket and all of our activities. And in the new year, we've got a meeting coming up in Ipswich, but we're also thinking of doing another meeting in Liverpool. We've got slots at book fairs coming up, so it's going to be busy. So anyway, right, how often do you do live streams? This is very interesting. Look forward to the content you've linked. Well, I usually, at a bare minimum, I do one live stream per month. I aim, but maybe, if there's more demand for them, I can try and do them every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. Usually, it's every 4 or 3 weeks. But I try and aim to do one at the end of November and in December. And if you want me to talk about specific subjects, you could let me know. So I can to try and meet the demands of the viewers. There are actually Russian pro DPRK channels, for example, Revolutionary Initiative. Well, thank you for that. That's quite interesting. I'd not heard of. I'd not heard of that one. I mean, I've heard of Red Star TV from Russia. And in the past, I used have a lot of contact with the Russian Juche Songun group, and also with the All Union Communist Party of Bolsheviks of Russia. Be good. I don't know if you're still there, Mr. Username. Where you could actually put the actual link, the URL for that channel, so I can check it out. But I mean, in the past, been a lot of very good Russian pro DPRK channels. How are the book fairs going? Did you get much pushback from local councils? Well, we have talked about this in an earlier live stream and a separate video. Basically, the book fairs, I mean, they're hoping to expand into other towns. I mean, this is Red Book Fairs. Check out their website. And the person who runs them is actually, dare I say, a KFA member. But they so far been holding them in Liverpool and in Wrexham. Now, been to the one in Liverpool about 2 times, and run the stall without any problems at all. The book fair was held in the Casa in Liverpool, which is a unique institution. It's actually a working class, progressive leftist pub, probably the only one of its kind in the UK. But I'm sure someone's going to point out, oh no, there's such and such pub. But I mean, it's associated with both the Spanish Civil War, that's why it's called the Casa, and with the dock strike in Liverpool. But we didn't have any problems there. Good response, sold loads of books, addressed a big meeting. However, the one in Wrexham was seemed to cause kerfuffle, a hullabaloo, with the leader of Wrexham Council and some ghastly council gander website who had a long article attacking KFA and the council leader, saying we weren't welcome in Wrexham, or something like that. And I couldn't tell whether we were simply going to be banned from using the council premises, or whether we're going to get banned from Wrexham completely. We wondered whether the council leader was going to set roadblocks up and search people for DPRK books and start questioning people whether they were KFA members. Are you or have you ever been a member of the Korean Friendship Association of the UK? In a one way, quite ridiculous, but on the other hand, a real sign of authoritarianism and creeping fascism and liberal fascism that we have here in the UK, where they are trying to suppress those who speak out in support of people's career and, trying to ban us from using council premises. We wrote a letter of complaint to the leader of Wrexham Council. He's never responded to this, and we've had no direct engagement either with the council or with this website, wrexham.com. They've never engaged directly, which I think is pretty shameful. But so far, that's the only example of pushback from local councils. But of course, these book fairs may not necessarily be held in council premises. There's other venues that can be used. I mean, in London, perhaps we could use the Marx Memorial Library for a book fair, or another venue that would be independent of a local authority. Right, okay. Do we have any more questions before I decide to call it a day and do some other work? For someone about to learn about the Juche Idea, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind at the beginning? Well, I can't help recalling the catchphrase or the saying of Dr. Vishnuoff, an Indian who was one of the first directors of the International Institute of the Juche Idea. And he always said, let's see if I've got it right, study the Juche Idea. It will cost you nothing, but will pay in plenty. I think that's a very good thing to bear in mind. But I would also say that Juche is empowerment. Studying the Juche Idea will give you the tools and a weapon to change the world, and that the masses are the masters of the revolution and construction. And that's to try and put things as simply as possible. Okay, well, I will copy the script, the Russian script, and find that channel. Let's see. Right. Well, thanks. Copied that, and I'll try to find that channel. And I mean, I think there's the Juche Songum channel is still around, but it doesn't seem to be active. And I met, did meet the original owner of that channel. Anyway, I think we've been going for 1 hour 15 minutes, which is not bad. Thank everybody for being here tonight. And I'll try to have these live streams perhaps a bit more frequently. And again, if you suggest topics, I will try and take them up. And I say, wish everybody a very good evening, and say cheerio now. Ciao. Goodbye. You're very welcome. Everybody is very welcome. Thank you. Goodbye.